Cultural Cascade by Karen, Heritage, Trinity, Rayganne, and Temi.
We'll be late for our flight if we don't leave now,
Said Evangeline as she urgently packed the last of her items in his suitcase. She and her husband were preparing to go on a 3-day trip for their anniversary. It was an early Friday morning, and the wind howled just as quietly as it rained. Evangeline is a proud mother of 4, and her children are purely the light of her life. A few years after she met her husband, Frank, while attending an HBCU, they decided to get married. They wanted to start a family, but they knew that education is key and wanted to graduate before any of that. After graduating top of their classes, they made a decision that adopting children was something they were interested in. Needless to say, Evangeline and Frank were pretty rich, and they had the resources to provide for them. The couple adopted kids who were less fortunate and had parents that did not have the means to take care of them. With this being said, their household was a bit of an ethnic hash. Their children were all from different ethnic backgrounds and had diverse customs, but Evangeline and Frank tried to keep them involved in each of their cultures. Natalia, the oldest of their children, is 16 years old and was the first child they adopted. About 2 years later came Nanami, who is 14 years old, and then 12-year-old Adina. Zion was the youngest and recently turned 4 years old. Unlike his siblings, Evangeline conceived Zion, but she did not view him differently than any of his other siblings. She loved them all dearly. As Frank brought their luggage downstairs, he called for their kids to see them out.
We're about to head out, guys. Come over here.
They all rushed over to the front door and gave him warm hugs.
Natalia, you're in charge. Please keep everyone sane.
Evangeline said with a light laugh while coming down the stairs.
Promise me you all will be good.
She said, slightly grinning.
Yes, Mom.
They all replied in unison, shifting their attention to Evangeline.
It's only 3 days. We'll be back before you know it.
Frank replied while pinching Zion's nose. Checking his watch, Frank noticed that if they wanted to make their flight, they would need to leave right then. Natalia helped them load their luggages in the trunk and said her final goodbye.
Love you both. Be safe.
After coming back into the house from seeing her parents off, Natalia questions her siblings.
All right, guys. What do y'all want to do today?
The 4 of them agreed to have a game tournament with various games on their Nintendo Switch. First, they played Just Dance, then Mario Kart, and finally Animal Crossing on their individual consoles. The first day without their parents had been going great so far. The evening was quickly approaching, so they decided that it was a good time to start dinner. Their mom, Evangeline, had left them with prepared meals that would be easy to make. If they wanted something else, the oldest of the 4, Natalia and Nanami, could make it. However, today's dinner would be a taco night. Natalia had gone grocery shopping with her mom the day before and decided it was a good idea to show her siblings what authentic tacos tasted like. They had only ever had hard-shell tacos before.
Dinner's ready.
Natalia called out across the house. Everyone runs to the kitchen. The girls wash their hands and grab a plate. Zion skips washing his hands and goes to grab a plate first.
Stop right there, mister. Remember to please wash your hands first, Zion.
Adina says. The girls work hard every day to make sure Zion remembers important manners. Everyone finishes eating and helps clean up. After dinner, they all contribute to help clean the kitchen. Although their parents have people that come to clean the house every week, the kids think that it's important to learn how to do certain things on their own. They switch duties every now and then, whether it's putting up the food, washing or drying the dishes, wiping the table, and setting the table to how it was before they ate.
What do you guys want to do now?
Asked Nanami as she finished drying the last couple of dishes.
Let's go outside to the trampoline.
Zion exclaims.
Okay, but just for a while. I don't need anyone throwing up their dinner today.
Says Natalia with a heavy sigh. The 4 of them head to the mudroom to put on their shoes. Adina helps Zion put on his shoes, but lets him tie the laces himself. Zion has always been a quick learner, learning how to walk at 9 months and already knowing kindergarten material, even though he's just starting pre-K. Outside, they all get on the trampoline and decide on a game to play. But as soon as they start, heavy drops started to fall from the sky, and the next thing you know, it's pouring. They all quickly run back inside to protect themselves from the cold rain.
Oh my gosh, Adina, you're tracking mud into the house.
Shouts Nanami.
You know how much Mom hates it when we do that. And it's always you. It's like Mom and Dad adopted you from a doghouse. When will you learn how to do things the right way?
The entire house fills with silence. They all have shocked expressions plastered onto their faces.
Are you being serious right now?
Adina questions, slightly hurt. The number one unspoken rule in the house is to never bring up their lives from before they were adopted. The three girls had been put in foster homes in their early childhood, and it always brings them pain to think about it. Nanami knew she crossed the line. Those words should have never escaped her mouth. Adina provokes Nanami some more, which leads to an endless argument full of bickering and smart remarks. Finally, Natalia splits them up and yells at them.
Both of you, go to bed now. I don't want to hear a single word come out from either of your mouths.
Natalia's demanding voice forces the two sisters to storm up the stairs, slam their doors, and lock themselves in their rooms.
I think it's about time you go to sleep too, little one.
Natalia says through gritted teeth. She puts Zion to bed before she herself falls asleep in hopes that her two sisters will resolve this dilemma tomorrow. The sound of birds chirping and the early afternoon sun shining through the windows woke Nanami from her sleep. Even though she and her siblings were tired early, she was exhausted. It was the guilt from arguing with her sisters the night before. Stretching as she stood from the bed, the young girl pondered on how to blame the conflict on her younger sister. Adina was always escalating things, while Nanami was blamed for everything. After washing her face and changing out of her pajamas, Nanami made her way downstairs, passing the dozens of photos hanging on the wall. The smiling faces of her family members made her stomach churn. Was it her conscience telling her to be the bigger person and apologize, or her stomach asking to be fed?
Again, I'm being the bigger person.
Nanami sighs to herself, surrendering to both her stomach and consciousness, heading toward the kitchen to make her breakfast for her and her siblings. Walking straight to the refrigerator, Nanami scans through the contents before finally settling on grilled fish and steamed rice with kobachi on the side. She cooks in silence, nothing but the sound of oil sizzling in the pan beneath her, until Natalia walks down the stairs with her little brother Zion right behind.
Something smells good. Are you saving some for us?
Natalia questions with a smile, before helping Zion onto a seat at the kitchen table.
I want a lot of rice, Mimi. The fish is too fishy.
Zion asks, sitting up on his knees to speak over the centerpiece on the table. Nanami smiled at the nickname while nodding at her brother's request. As she began to set the table, the youngest sister finally made her way downstairs and into the seat across from Zion, mumbling a quick good morning to her siblings. After that, the four ate in silence, cleaned up in silence, and just as they were about to go their separate ways, Zion asks to go swimming. Nanami looked through the large windows and out to their backyard, where a large pool with a hot pink flamingo inflatable drifting across the partially still water.
I'll take you.
Both Nanami and Adina exclaimed, earning glares from each other immediately after.
I said I'll do it.
Adina repeated, turning towards her older sister and crossing her arms.
Well, I'm older, so I said I'll do it before you.
Nanami insisted, mirroring her younger sister's actions.
That doesn't even make sense. Zion wants to go with me, don't you, Zion?
Adina continued, turning her attention to the youngest sibling. The boy was obviously uncomfortable with the question of choosing between two of his sisters.
All right.
Natalia intervenes.
How about Nanami takes Zion swimming since she's a more experienced swimmer and you can choose something else to do?
She says, facing Adina. Nanami happily took Zion's hand and led him upstairs to change into their swimsuits, while Adina frustratedly disappeared to an unknown corner of the house. The sun was warm and inviting as it shone on the clear water in the pool. Adina watched her siblings enviously from her mother's study window. Their laughter and smiles made her want to join, but the young girl's pride stood in the way. After about an hour of watching them, Adina decided that she had enough of losing to Nanami and rushed upstairs, grabbing the pack of Uno cards from her room and back downstairs to the backyard.
Zion, how about you ditch the pool and play Uno instead?
Adina questioned, waving the box of cards in the air.
Nope, he's fine just where he is. Isn't that right, Zion?
Nanami answered just as she turned to face him. The young boy was already out of the pool and moving to dry himself off. Adina smirked down at Nanami before leading their brother back into the house. Nanami angrily splashed the water, sending the pink flamingo to the other side of the pool before she too got out of the pool to dry herself off. For the next half hour, Nanami bitterly watched the two siblings play the card game from the kitchen. That was until Natalia came downstairs from her room, dressed in one of her vintage two-piece sets and a matching purse. She glanced from Nanami to Adina and Zion before frowning.
Why are you two still in your swimsuits? This is how you get sick. Go shower now.
The oldest sister shouted, slamming her purse onto the kitchen island.
Relax. You sound like Mom. Plus, it's only been 30 minutes. No need to overreact.
Nanami shrugged.
Acting like Mom? Do you know how mad she'll be if one of you gets sick while I'm in charge?
Natalia counters, walking over to Zion and guiding him towards the stairs.
But I don't want to shower.
Zion refused, slapping the eldest sister's hand away. Natalia sighed before reasoning with him.
If you do this for me, I'll take you out shopping and for some ice cream.
By Zion's wide smile and sudden urgency to bathe, it was clear that Natalia had won this battle. After another half hour, Natalia and Zion were heading out the door and into one of the multiple cars parked in the driveway.
See you later. If you get hungry, eat the leftovers from last night or breakfast. Bye.
Natalia shouted, slamming the car door and backing out of the driveway. Just like that, the house was quiet again. The two sisters who had their activities interrupted couldn't stand to be near each other, much less converse about random topics. The hours faded and blurred, and now Nanami and Adina were sitting across from each other, eating the leftovers from last night's dinner. The silence was uncomfortable, and the tensions between the two made Nanami want to apologize and make up with her sister. The two were always fighting, but this was the longest time they hadn't resolved a conflict.
Dina, I'm sorry about today and last night. Let's not fight anymore, okay?
Nanami proposed, sliding her hand over her younger sister's.
Sorry? You're always saying sorry, but you never mean it.
Adina angrily shouts, standing from her seat so fast the chair scrapes against the floor before falling with a thud.
Well, I'm always saying sorry because you forced me to take the blame. If you weren't so dysfunctional and a slob, I wouldn't have to say things I don't mean.
Nanami shouts back, slamming her fist on the table, causing the silverware to rattle against the plates.
A slob? I'm a slob?
Adina scoffs, glancing at the plates of food below her.
If I'm such a slob, I should act like it, right?
She says, flipping her plate over, spilling the food all over the table. Shocked, Nanami angrily tells her sister to clean up the mess, but her pleas fall on deaf ears, and Adina moves to other parts of the house. She starts pulling pillows to the floor, draping toilet paper over the light fixtures, and even pulling the photo albums and yearbooks from the shelves in the living room.
Are you crazy? Stop it!
Natalia's voice echoed through the house. The younger sisters had not heard her enter over the commotion and the chaos.
What is going on here? I leave for a couple of hours and you two trash the place?
It was Adina. She was the one who went all ballistic on me.
Nanami pointed out, quickly shifting the blame from herself.
It's because you ruined everything for me. I hate you.
Adina shouted back, picking up a pillow and throwing it in the direction of her siblings. The pillow, which was obviously meant for Nanami, ended up hitting their younger brother in the face. The force knocked him down to the ground, resulting in his ice cream falling straight to the floor. Everyone froze and became tense. They all knew that Zion had a sweet tooth and would absolutely freak.
Hey now, Zion, it's okay. We can just look in the freezer. I'm pretty sure Dad has some leftover Rocky Road in there.
Nanami said, trying to soothe her little brother. This failed, and soon, Zion's cries for ice cream were heard throughout the whole house. Natalia dropped the bags full of whatever the two siblings had purchased earlier and scooped Zion into her arms.
It's okay, don't cry. Shh.
The older sister began to shush her youngest sibling.
Natalia, I didn't mean to. I was aiming for someone else.
Adina began before she was harshly interrupted.
I don't care who you were aiming for. Clean up this mess and go to your room. Both of you.
Natalia shouted before stomping up the stairs. Without another word, Adina and Nanami share shameful glances before the elder of the two retreats to her room, leaving Adina alone. Sunday morning, Natalia, Nanami, and Adina wake up to the sound of the next door's neighbor's dog barking.
Despite both your inabilities to act mature when left alone, I've decided to put my feelings aside, only for Zion's sake.
Natalia says in an aggravated tone. Nanami and Adina share an annoyed look before glancing back at Natalia. Natalia sighs and says,
Come on, you guys. Because of our arguing, Zion went to bed crying last night.
Adina responds,
I do feel pretty bad about it. He is our little brother, and we couldn't even keep him happy for a day.
Natalia and Adina look at Nanami, who hasn't spoken a word all morning. The middle child shakes her head before replying.
You guys are just...
She pauses before continuing.
Let's just make Zion a nice breakfast to make it up to him.
Natalia and Adina both reply,
Finally, something we can all agree on.
causing all three sisters to start laughing.
How about we make something that combines all of our cultures?
Natalia suggests.
Well, I think that's a great idea.
Adina quickly replies, and Nanami gives both sisters a thumbs up with a smile. After some discussion, the sisters agree to make 3 unique dishes. Huevos rancheros, which is a typical Hispanic breakfast that consists of fried eggs over a toasted tortilla, miso shiru, also known as miso soup, which is a traditional Japanese breakfast item that is made from fermented soybean paste and dashi broth, as well as a vegetable souffle, which is a distinctive Israeli combination of vegetables and bread. Once they finish cooking, they get out their brother's favorite plate and go to his room to surprise him. Zion wakes up with a smile on his face at the feast before him.
What's all this for?
Zion asks, surprised. Before anyone else responds, Adina speaks up.
We wanted to make you smile today.
Zion smiles and responds.
I like when my sisters are this way.
The afternoon goes by smoothly, and all 3 sisters decide to relax and spend time with their little brother. Many hours pass, and Nanami and Adina decide to start prepping for dinner, while Natalia helps Zion with his anniversary card for their parents. But before Natalia could finish helping Zion with the card, she hears Adina and Nanami yelling from the kitchen.
What do you mean Israeli culture is dull? What is so unique about Japanese culture? Isn't it all the same?
Adina yells. Nanami yells back in an aggravated tone.
Your cultural ignorance doesn't even faze me. You should be ashamed for your statement.
After trying to get her sisters to calm down with no success, Natalia yells.
Could the both of you just shut up?
Natalia sees the shock in Adina and Nanami's eyes, but they aren't looking at her. She turns around and sees her parents standing in the entryway with confused looks.
What happened?
Both parents ask with deep concern in their eyes. The house was a complete mess, and they had come home to their daughters yelling at each other. When no one responds to their parents' question, Adina sighs and begins.
We were trying to figure out a way that we could incorporate all of our cultures into Zion's life.
Nanami continues.
And we got carried away. Our cultures hold important aspects of our lives before we were adopted, so it's hard to agree.
Natalia nods her head in agreement, a tear falling from her face.
We are so sorry.
Zion rushes into the room and clings to his mom's legs as she rubs his head. Evangeline pans the messy house and then looks to the oldest with visual frustration across her face.
I thought we told you to keep everyone sane.
Evangeline began.
You guys are siblings. You shouldn't be disrespecting each other's cultures. We've had this talk already.
Frank added.
I know,
Adina blurted out, causing both parents' eyes to dart towards her.
but Nanami said,
The girl continued before she was interrupted.
I don't want to hear who said what.
Evangeline cut her off.
We're going upstairs to unpack, and when we come back down, we're going to resolve this.
As Evangeline and Frank made their way upstairs with their luggage in hand, little Zion follows closely behind. The kitchen falls silent until Natalia turns to her younger sisters.
I thought we already resolved this whole thing this morning. Don't you think we spent enough time arguing about it? Regardless of what we may feel about it in the moment, imagine how Zion feels hearing all of this. He loves us all equally, and we should love each other too, especially for our unique cultures.
Natalia wipes the tears that have stained her face and folds her arms across her chest. Adina's head is hung low, and her apologies were muffled.
You're right. I'm sorry, guys.
Nanami says, pulling her sisters into a hug.
You're right. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm really sorry this time. I shouldn't have said what I did. I didn't even mean it.
Natalia hugs them a little tighter.
We have to make better choices, even if our emotions get the best of us. Let's do it for Zion.
The girls begin tidying up in the main room of the house and putting stuff away in the kitchen. Nanami breaks the uncomfortable silence of the room.
You know, I actually think Israeli culture is really interesting.
She says, causing Adina to look up and meet Nanami's eyes, and they begin to laugh.
Hispanic culture is too.
Adina adds, and they all smile. They continue cleaning up and talking.
And guess what? In class, we even learn about Japanese culture. It's so cool. I have a project coming up on it.
Really? Maybe I can help you with it.
Nanami excitedly says.
Guys, focus. So about our culture appreciation nights, what are we doing this Wednesday?
Natalia asks. Cleaning instead turns into a distracting but exciting conversation.
Mommy and Daddy, I made you an anniversary card too. Natty helped me.
Zion's voice echoed down the hall. Zion pulls his dad by hand into the main room with Evangeline following behind.
Oh, right.
Natalia says as she and Zion get the anniversary card from the table.
I see you guys have cleaned up some.
Evangeline smiles.
Yeah, we kind of resolved stuff.
Nanami smiles and roughly links arms with Adina.
Ow, Don't pull me that hard.
Adina winces.
I didn't even pull you that hard.
Nanami says, turning her head to Adina. Evangeline and Frank look at each other and laugh. Once everything is cleaned up, the family gathers for dinner in their dining room. Evangeline and Frank decided to cook dinner since they had been away from their kids for a while. They decided to cook ma'a tahiti, a Tahitian dish with a variety of seafood and traditional root crops like sweet potato and yams. For dessert, they made poe, a Tahitian fruit pudding with banana puree and brown sugar. These dishes were inspired by their recent anniversary trip to Bora Bora.
This is so yummy.
Zion says with a mouthful and a happy dance.
Thank you, honey.
Evangeline laughs.
The dish was inspired by our trip to the islands of Polynesia. We stayed in Bora Bora but visited Tahiti and learned how to make some traditional dishes.
Frank said excitedly.
Wow, I want to go to Bora Bora one day.
Adina says, and her sisters nod in agreement.
Oh, Mom, Dad,
Natalia said, looking to the both of them.
we've decided we wanted to do something we're calling Cultural Cascade Nights.
Natalia says, putting emphasis and big gestures behind each word.
Yeah, we want to spend some afternoons and maybe even weekends learning about and trying different aspects of each other's culture.
Nanami says.
That sounds like a lot of fun, girls. Can we join?
Evangeline says, smiling.
Of course, Mom.
Adina laughs.
I want to join.
Zion raises his hand and drops his food on the table.
We will both get to do it too.
Frank laughs and cleans up after Zion. The rest of the night, the kids gather in the living space around their parents to hear stories from their anniversary trip. Before they knew it, hours passed and they began to get sleepy. Natalia carries Zion to bed while Adina and Nanami take his stuff to his room. Once they put him to sleep, the girls head to their rooms and get ready for bed as well. The house was clean and harmonious once again.